think we're on. It's Baby. Do you know, years ago, we have a lot of cats, animals, dogs. And years ago, I was at the firehouse, and my daughter, Christina, one of her little kittens got run over in the street. Baby's sick. She's old. So my kids know that I get upset about all the cats. So, over the years, a lot of rescue animals we have. So, when the cat died, I felt bad, and I went to one of the shelters here. Now, I figured I'll go rescue a kitten, and bring it home. But I forget the name of the shelter. It's here in Corpus, but it's one of the paid shelters. I paid $80 for a little kitten. Of course, you can get them for free. This is like 12 years ago or something. But they had one. I said, do you have any cats? I said, I want to get a cat. And the lady at the shelter said, oh yes, we have one little calico in a cage in the back. And she was so pretty. And they named her Tortellini, right? And I'm Italian, Tortellini. And I said, I'll take her. And then I paid like $80 for her. I named her Tia. And she was pretty. And then I brought her home, I got off of the fire department that day, I guess, and got it. And I brought it home and told my daughter, I got you a little cat. And then she protected it, and we still have them. They rescue them. Different ones. We don't have that one. I'll tell you why. So, my daughter put that little cat, Tia, in her room with another little stray she had. And I didn't see that Tia for, a month or months. And I told my daughter one day, I said, oh, where's that little Tia? My daughter said, oh no, she's afraid of people, Dad. She's been staying in my room. She stays under the bed. And I said, no, she'll probably remember me, because when I took her home from the shelter, they had a little box for her, and that little kitten was crying, and I put my finger through the little box, driving the car. I said, it's okay, it's okay. She got used to my voice. So when I went in my daughter's room that day, my daughter said, no, she's like a stray now. She's afraid of people, Dad. And I sat in the room, and I said, Tia. And that little kitty, she got a little bigger, came running out. She remembered my voice. My daughter was surprised. The other day, Debbie, one of my other daughters, came home, and my wife and Debbie came in the yard. I was reading her some. They said we had to take Tia rush her to the emergency vet thing. I said, what happened? She's in the front of the house, like she was dying. She died. They took her in. Somebody poisoned Tia with antifreeze. They killed that cat. Baby's been here for a while. And I feel bad because I know she's very sick and old, and she gets on my nerves. She doesn't just cry like that, but she cries for months now, like she's been dying. And I've been saying to my wife, we got to put that cat down. She's sick, she's old. Now, the last week, she comes into my room. I got like a little office bedroom that's mine over here. And she started coming in there. And this morning, the last few days, she's been in this room, my back sunroom office. And she never comes in here. And this morning again, she's in here, because she realizes she's going to die. And my wife told me yesterday, she said, we're going to have to put her down. And I said, oh, don't say nothing to me. I get depressed over that. Like when that Tia died, You realize when you struggle with depression, little things can get you very depressed. So that's baby. But this is just a little update. I wasn't going to do a video today because I have to post. Today is Thursday. It's October. I guess the 1st. I want to say this whole year, doing those little political things, and I read the sites and all. I think that our possibility of a real war with Russia is very real. And I think Russia made decisions, Putin made decisions a few years ago that there was no more trying to sway public opinion, and that he understood. And I remember some of these stories that I see in the news don't get a lot of play. You don't see them a lot. But I just as a reader of political events, I remember a few years back when Hillary Clinton was still Secretary of State, there was a little uprising in Russia. I guess Moscow, there were protesters. And one of our leaders, not Obama, but maybe Hillary Clinton, somebody asked, there's uprisings in Russia. And we made a very simple statement. Didn't get a lot of news coverage. Sort of like, well, maybe it's time, that Putin's going to go. When we use language like that, we use it politically. We have a tendency in the United States to speak these ways. And the end result in the countries that we're speaking about, or the leaders, is oftentimes they get killed. And their countries become, many people die. You say, what do you mean, John? When we say Gaddafi is going to have to go, the leader of Libya, and Gaddafi, when he was fighting in Libya, we were backing up people we give names to the groups of rebels that we back up. The groups of rebels that we back up, for the most part, are the exact same groups of people that we also call terrorists in other places. No difference. None. Those rebel militia groups and all, there's really no difference. So when we were declaring Gaddafi's going to go down, the leader of Libya, which he was killed, with our consent and our air power. And he was saying, Gaddafi was saying, these are not freedom-fighting, loving rebels. Gaddafi said, these are terrorists I'm fighting. He was right. There was some legitimate protests within Libya. Don't get me wrong, but the people that organized the militias and all, they were terrorists. The same ones that went in and killed our ambassador in Benghazi, which those of you who follow politics, that's the hearings, and Hillary Clinton's still going to speak before Trey Gowdy and the committee in the United States. We still got it coming up. So, our backing of freedom fighters, for the most part, there's not a big distinction between them and terrorist groups. It just depends what country and what we want to happen. And then we'll give them the name. So when we did this in Syria, and said Assad, the leader of Syria, must go, and they're in a 5-year civil war, we began saying, who are we going to support? We want Assad out again. We make these declarative statements where, and that country, regardless of your views on the way these countries are run, I obviously am not for monarchies and family rules, but Saudi Arabia's got one going. They're no better than anyone else. They had more people on the planes when they bombed our towers than any other country. They came out of Saudi Arabia, and we back Saudi Arabia, the monarchy. So we got nothing, no consistency. So when we started going into saying the Syrian leader, Assad, when we said it's time for him to go, again, after all of our other statements like that, at least a political disaster for those countries, death and murder, but we make them. And Assad was a and is an ally of Russia, of Putin, President of Russia. And then we decided we're also going to start bombing ISIS within Syria, ISIL. And ISIS is fighting Assad, and Assad is fighting ISIS. So then we said, we're going to bomb ISIS, but we're also not going to back Assad. We also want him to be out. So now we're saying we're going to depose the leader of Syria, and the people he's fighting, we're also going to fight against them. And we're going to train, millions of dollars to train the Free Syrian Army. Are the Free Syrian Army a Free Syrian? Probably not. They're probably ISIS, ISIL, and every other group that in some place. So finally, Russia, which I've been saying all year, they're going to do what they want to do, and if it leads to an actual war, you're going to have a war, and there's going to be things we're going to see in this country. So this week, just yesterday, they did the speech. Putin did the speech at the UN this week and laid out his strategy. And he said the U.S. strategy is a failure, which he is correct. He said the only way you're going to uproot ISIS out of Syria is you're going to have to back Assad and Assad's troops. Now, Assad is still the leader of Syria. And when we went in and decided we were going to fly over that country to bomb ISIS, we didn't get permission from Assad. And some would say, well, don't you need the permission? And our answer was, we do what we want. That was what our answer was. And Putin and others, they were just biding their time. Putin, I believe, decided a long time ago, this is it. And he had to get some things in place because of many, many things that have been going on. And so now he's got to build up in Syria, and the new northern party is going to back up Assad. And yesterday, one of their Russian generals walked into our building in Iraq, the embassy or military leader, and the general said, we're going to start bombing in northern Syria. It was 1 hour after he said it, and he said, we don't want your American planes there. Now, our response was, like, we acted tough, but we didn't. And we said, well, we're still going to fly our planes. And who did they bomb? Okay, they bombed groups that we called the Free Syrian Army. See? Now this is where, when we manipulate with names and all. And our news media is reporting all day yesterday, and it's going to be today. Russia lied. Russia said they were going to bomb ISIS, but there are no ISIS camps where he bombed. That's correct. But the Free Syrian Army, these guys, there's not a big distinction. They cross over. In Afghanistan, the city, Kunduz, a city we just lost in Afghanistan. All the years we fought there, 11 years or whatever in Afghanistan, trying to fight the Taliban. We just lost the city. And it's to the Taliban that we lost. But what you don't also see in the media is ISIL has been, they were executing Taliban. ISIL in Afghanistan this last year was executing Taliban people, the fighters. And they're crossing over to ISIL. And some of the ground taken in Afghanistan right now, the media makes it sound like it's the Taliban, but many have converted over to ISIL. So you got them in Libya, you got them in Afghanistan, and they're putting up ISIS flags. It's possible that it wasn't so much the Taliban that just took that major city, which was a defeat for the United States. It happened this week. It's possible ISIL did that. So when Russia went in yesterday and gave us 1 hour notice and said, we're going to start flying, we fly over Syria. Our fighter pilots have been flying, dropping bombs on ISIL without the permission of Assad. So to some people, that's a violation of international law. To some people, that's a violation of international law. Well, John, then how can we do it? Well, we just said we were going to do it. We're smug. And Russia's been seeing this. They decided, if so be it, they just, recently they spotted one of the nuclear subs not too off of our coasts. The nuclear subs have the capacity to deploy multiple warheads, nuclear bombs, right into the United States and hit major U.S. cities in one launching. That's what nuclear technology does. John, would they do that? I believe it's closer to that happening than we've seen in our lifetime. I believe it is. And when they were flying yesterday, and it's going on again today, our planes are going to be in the air too, and they already just gave us the warning. We don't want your planes in the air. So Russia has said the strategy for us to defeat ISIS in Syria is we're going to fight in cooperation with the leader of Syria, which they recognize also as Assad, and we're going to do it with their permission. In some cases, they're making a better case than we make. And I do believe, because of various things, the sanctions we put on Russia, that they decided a while ago it's going to come down to war. And they might not be the first to start something, but they're going to say, look, these are our intentions. This is what we're doing in Ukraine. China says this is what we're going to do in the China Sea when they extended their sea space. And Russia says, and this is what we're going to do now in Syria. We're going to back up our ally. And when the U.S. yesterday, they asked our top person that's in charge of the Syria bombing of ISIS and all, just announced they were going to resign from the administration's person. The U.S. person was going to resign because just the last few days, some of the discussions when Lavrov, the military leader of Russia, spoke to John Kerry, there were certain things that they basically said this is what we're going to do. So then yesterday, the media said, the news media in the United States said, and some of it's true, some is not, they said the U.S. backed Free Syrian Army, which we admitted there's 6 or 9 people we trained out of, supposed to have thousands. But they admitted that Russia hit them yesterday and killed them, hit their camps in northern Syria and killed them. These are supposed to be our fighters they killed. And the Pentagon, the military leader, Lavrov of Russia, they asked him, and one of the media people said, you bombed these freedom fighters. And he said, they're terrorists, they're ISIS. Don't listen to what the Pentagon says. I think he's right. So how could he be right? Because we did the same thing in Libya. We said, we're backing up the freedom fighters in Libya. And Gaddafi was in a war there, fighting, saying publicly, they're terrorists. The U.S. is backing. The U.S. ain't backing freedom fighters over here. And it's a disaster there. And so now, and John Kerry, I heard a little news clip yesterday. He said, well, now the thing we're going to have to do is we're going to fight ISIS, and also Assad is going to have to go. So now this is more difficult than all of our other operations because we're going to remove him, and more difficult. The other ones that were simpler failed. So I just want to say to everybody, today's date, I gave it to you. I put them on the videos. Today, this has all been in the works for a long time. Our military people this last year were saying that, it's not a secret in the military academies in Russia. For a while now, they've been laying out, it's not a bluff, they've been laying out how to actually have a real war with the United States. So what I think they're going to do Russia is they're going to not directly instigate a war right off the bat. They're going to go in and say, this is our strategy. U.S., you're flying over Syria because you determined you wanted to drop bombs. And you said publicly and brazenly, we don't need the permission of Assad. We're going to do what we want to do over there. That's what we said. And Russia's now saying, it's been 5 years, it's a disaster, you get the migrant crisis. We're going to go in, we're going to support Assad, we're going to strengthen his hand, and we're going to fight. That was the case Putin laid out before the UN. And that's what they're going to do. And they gave notice to the U.S., and with 1 hour after they walked into our embassy in Iraq and said, and they gave it tersely, there's a certain name for what they said, but they came in and said, we, Russia, are going to start bombing in Syria today. It was 1 hour after they said it, and they warned us. They said, and we do not want United States planes in the air. And after they bombed what we call the Free Syrian Army, which are probably, mixed in with ISIS groups and other groups like that, but they supposedly are our allies. Those are our guys. Russia killed them yesterday. What was the U.S. response? John Kerry said, well, we have a little technical issue over geography. Look, U.S., if you're claiming that those are your fighters that you trained, and that's the political thing that you want to give to the public, and then Russia openly acknowledged that they killed those fighters that we as the U.S. said are our fighters, and then your statement is, well, we had a little geographical technical difference. Okay, this is where we're heading. So the media, this is just a little thing. I could have done some Revelation, some Jeremiah, but I'm going to just post this as sort of like the week in review. There's a lot of stuff that people talked about, and I didn't get into a lot of that, about the blood moons. Some of you Christians might be familiar. I don't see a lot into, there's a reason why some people saw a lot into the Jewish feasts that were occurred this year and in coordination with certain things that were taking place. But I did say, I believe we're going to see things, and things are going to rock and things are going to shake. And if you sincerely ask me, just from me looking at all these different events, there's troubles on the horizon. Trouble is on the horizon. None of these things, when I heard the German Chancellor 8 months ago, Angela Merkel, say, in one statement she made when we were doing our dealings with Russia and Ukraine, German Chancellor Merkel said, this can lead to a world war. This can be World War III. Look, when you hear that was the Ukraine situation. When you hear other heads of state saying that, that's not bluffs. That they're reading the tea leaves. They're reading them, and they're saying that there's a change. There's been a change over there. I would just say, without the whole political thing, but it's involved because of everything. We're having debates in this country on things that to other countries consider wicked, hideous. Much of the things I've talked about on the abortions and all. And yet at the same time, when we do these moral actions, it deals with philosophy and a lot. Where are we getting these morals? Sometimes we justify what we do in nations as a country. When we go involve ourselves in nations, we justify it because we say the standard norms, they violated the standard norms. We violate standard norms. Once you start hearing us use things like war crimes, when we start using terms like that, crimes against humanity, and some of the times when we use them, it's no different than the crimes that have been committed in all wars. But we start using terms like that because it's an indication we're going to say we don't really need a whole bunch of justification for us to involve ourselves in your country because your crimes are the standard moral norms. What moral norms? Tell me. Where are you getting them from? United States. Where are you getting that from when you use that? when you defend the ripping apart of a baby, because it's a great freedom. And the court says, and our Congress can't even pass a law that says if that baby's born alive by a botched abortion, and you hear that baby screaming for 3 hours in the closet, in the bedpan, which a nurse has testified these things happen, and you can't even give treatment to that baby, and the United States Congress can't even pass a law that says treat that baby if it's born and screaming. Don't just let it bleed to death and die. But we can't even make that act illegal. And then we justify all these other actions as they violated the morals, the standard norms of morality. We have abdicated our ability to say that anymore to anybody, anywhere. I'm not going to do Jeremiah and Revelation. I'll give you a verse I wrote last night. And he carried me away in the spirit unto a great and high mountain. I'm finishing the book of Revelation. And the judgment period is passing by. And they're seeing the new heaven and the new earth. All pain's going to go. No more crying, no more tears. The promise. To him that overcomes. A lot of great promises. He will inherit all things. And I will be his God. And he shall be my son. That's the promise. You get through all that. You overcome. That's the promise. This is just going to be an update. Okay? God bless.